I'm Joe Rapari, and this is Tab, the Truth Always Boomer. Rachel Maddow really is a mad cow. And I mean that with all due disrespect, because she hasn't earned any respect at all. So let's pull the tab on that and see what happens.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I'm going to show you just how much the mainstream media, and specifically MSNBC and Rachel Maddow, or as I call her, Rachel the Mad Cow, lie and how dishonest they are. And by engaging in this sort of conduct day after day, makes Rachel Mad Cow not a good person. Basically a bad person. A person of low moral character. A person with no principles. Well, except bad ones. She's basically a chuckle-headed nitwit of the highest order. And as I said, she's not a good person. I'm going to try and not get excited during this video or to use any kind of flowery language, because Mad Cow really knows how to light my fuse. She makes my skin crawl, basically. And I want this video to be serious and based on facts. So I'm going to show that Rachel the Mad Cow's broadcast of August 20th, 2019 was basically a hit piece on the Epoch Times. And she did this hit piece because the Epoch Times is diametrically opposed to her left-wing propaganda agenda. She had a definite agenda during this broadcast, and I'm going to bring that out as we go through these various video clips. Now, I want to apologize first. This video is going to be a tad long, but there was a lot of content in this hit piece she did on the Epoch Times, and I just wanted to call her out on it. Because I subscribe to the Epoch Times. I like it. It's kind of a right-leaning conservative newspaper, but there's a lot of good stuff in it, and a lot of truth in it, as opposed to watching Rachel the Mad Cow show, which has no truth in it and is basically I don't know, progressive propaganda and bullshit. So that's why I subscribe to the Epoch Times, and she did this hit piece on them. And it was full of lies and misrepresentations and dishonesty. So she starts out the broadcast by explaining the visit of the Chinese president to the Bush White House in 2006 and how bad that visit was, and it was basically a catastrophe, and everything went wrong, and it was just a total debacle. But she points out that the biggest debacle or the biggest catastrophe of that whole visit was this Chinese woman who interrupted the Chinese president's speech. Kind of weird, but that's what she points out, and she goes on to bash this woman constantly during the broadcast at the beginning, on and on. She goes on and on about this Chinese woman, and there's a reason why, and we'll see as we go through this video, as she inches closer and closer to her final agenda at the end of her broadcast. So let's start it out and take a look, shall we?
But the real problem that day turned out to be this other thing.
To enhance dialogues, expand common ground, deepen mutual trust and cooperation, and promote the all-round growth of constructive and cooperative China-U.S. relations in the 21st century.
So that's the Chinese president speaking Chinese. He pauses after every few lines so the English language translator can repeat what he said in English, right? It's this woman then starts screaming her guts out in the middle of Hu Jintao's speech. And she's actually really quite close to Hu Jintao when she's doing it. She's on an elevated press platform that's right in front of the podium from which Bush and Hu are making their remarks. And Hu at one point stops speaking, and Bush says to him, "Go on, you're okay," urges him to go.
In this clip, she says that the Chinese woman who interrupted the Chinese president was real close to the Chinese president, right in front of him. Really? Well, as you can see in the video, she's about 100 yards away. And she's not close at all. So it looks like Rachel the Mad Cow seems to have a space distance disability to go along with all her other disabilities. And she, as I said, she's going to make it seem like this Chinese woman is very bad. Chinese woman bad. Really bad. She says, it was really something. Let's continue.
We actually were able to obtain the criminal complaint that, in fact, was brought against this woman in D.C. federal court when she was charged. The affidavit that accompanied the complaint tells you how seriously U.S. authorities took this as a potential criminal matter. Right? So serious charges brought against this woman who was arrested at the White House that day. Right? She went on and on and on yelling for like 3 minutes, but they finally got her out of there. She reportedly spent the night in jail after they hauled her out. That said, ultimately, within a couple of months, prosecutors did a deal with her. Those charges did get dropped.
As you can see, in her attempt to portray this Chinese woman as a serious criminal, she puts up the court records and says, serious charges were brought against the woman that day. Yeah, Mad Cow, so serious that the charges were eventually dropped. She says prosecutors made a deal with her and the charges were dropped. Yes, they were. What deal, though? There was a deal? Where's the deal? No, I don't see the deal. Where's the deal? The charges were dropped. End of story. Case closed, Mad Cow. But she goes on and on about this Chinese woman, man. She paints her as like Bonnie and, from Bonnie and Clyde. This woman, really bad. But again, there's an agenda behind this. She's inching closer and closer to it. The next clip she brings out that this woman is affiliated with, you'll never guess, the Epoch Times.
Now, the woman was credentialed to be there by the George W. Bush White House because she was affiliated with a news outlet. She was affiliated with a little-known newspaper called the Epoch Times. What their press pass holder, that woman, had been screaming at the Chinese president about was the Chinese government's persecution of people who are practitioners of something called Falun Gong, which is a Chinese religious movement that has been engaged for years in a very loud, very big brawl with the Chinese government. Falun Gong was outlawed by the Chinese government in 1999. Their members claim to have suffered brutal repression at the hands of China, including allegations of murder and torture of their members. The Chinese government, for their part, they have relentlessly denounced this group as if it's some sort of very dangerous cult that must be suppressed. And whatever you think of this fight between that religious sect and the Chinese government, the cult part of the Chinese government's allegation has been helped along in the world press by the founder of that religious group repeatedly telling reporters about how he believes he possesses the ability to fly. He also says he can levitate through walls.
She says this woman was affiliated with a little-known newspaper, the Epoch Times. Yeah, it wasn't known very well at all, was it? But you had to spend almost 30 minutes on prime time cable TV bashing it. That seems a bit odd. Why'd you do that? If it's so little known, why did you have to do that? It seems, kind of strange, though, doesn't it? She finally brings out why the woman was protesting at the Chinese president's speech. She's a member of the Falun Gong religion, and that she was protesting the Chinese treatment of this religion. They've been persecuting and mistreating the practitioners of this religion for a long time, and the Chinese government even banned Falun Gong in 1999. She goes out of her way to say that the Chinese government says that this religion is a cult and must be eliminated. She also says that the world press has helped the cult part along by saying that its founder can fly, and levitate, and walk through walls. Well, so what? What's wrong with that? What about Tom Cruise and Scientology? I don't hear you bashing them. So why are you bashing this religion and its founder? Mad Cow. Huh? I don't know. let's keep going because there certainly is a definite agenda. We're getting closer, folks. Stay with me.
The year after the Chinese government banned Falun Gong in China, again, which led to remarkable and very scary allegations of serious persecution by the Chinese government. A year after they outlawed it, practitioners of that religious movement founded an English language newspaper in the United States, basically to support that religious movement. It's a newspaper called the Epoch Times. And you might have, seen it around over the years. You'll often see it in free newspaper newsstands in major cities. You've definitely seen pro-Falun Gong protesters at lots of Chinese government events anywhere in the Western world. This is a protest movement against the Chinese government that has popped its head up in the United States, sometimes to great and nearly catastrophic effect, including that fateful day in 2006 on the White House South Lawn.
Then she says a religious protester protesting the persecution, torture, and murder of its members is a catastrophic occurrence. A religious protester is a catastrophic occurrence. Can you see where she's going with this? Can you see why she's painting this woman as a crazy person and a real lunatic? But we're getting there.
But this religious movement and its conflict with the Chinese government and that newspaper promoting the interests of this dissident Chinese religious sect, it's been a China story, right? Much more than it has ever been a U.S. story. I mean, yeah, occasionally, like on the White House South Lawn that day, it's right there in Americans' faces, and occasionally they have these big, loud protests. But it is a story that has not been seen about our own government. It has been a thing having to do with China and this dispute.
Well, sorry, Mad Cow. Too much lying on this one, man. We're going to have to put a halt to this right now and stop for a minute, shall we? I know there's going to be more lies and more dishonesty through this video and your broadcast. But we'll stop here for a moment and we'll let Jasper Fakert, editor-in-chief of U.S. editions of the Epoch Times, explain some things here. This is from an article from August 22nd, 2019 in the Epoch Times titled, Why NBC and MSNBC's reporting on the Epoch Times is textbook fake news. He goes on to say, the most disturbing part of the coverage of Mad Cow's show and NBC News is their deliberate effort to attack a group of religious believers currently persecuted in China. This comes at a time when tens of millions in China still don't have religious freedom and face arrest, illegal incarceration in labor camps, torture, and even forced organ harvesting for practicing their beliefs. The Epoch Times was originally founded by Chinese Americans who had fled communism. In America, they saw the opportunity to create an independent media that would benefit people around the world. The founders of the Epoch Times believed in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, the principles of Falun Gong. This is a fact that we have never shied away from, and it is exactly this commitment to truth that can be seen in our reporting. Unable to attack the Epoch Times reporting based on factual inaccuracies, NBC News, MSNBC, and Rachel the Mad Cow opted to dip into the well of 20 years of Chinese Communist Party hate propaganda aimed at demonizing Falun Gong. This will come up later in my video. In such low attacks and in the brazen misrepresentation of our subscription ads and our Spygate reporting, one sees the very image of what has come to be called fake news. I believe that this and similar betrayals of journalism are why so many people are turning to the Epoch Times for our independent and factual reporting. Well, that's why I did. Immigrants have played an enormous role in building this great nation. It is a country built on the principle of religious freedom. As such, we see the Epoch Times story as a quintessential American story. Our pledge to you, our readers, is that we will not waver from our commitment to the truth and will continue to bring you the highest quality of journalism. Commitment to the truth. Well, now we get it, Mad Cow. You don't understand commitment to the truth, so you don't understand anything the Epoch Times does. Like I said, you're a chuckle-headed nitwit. Then she mentions an NBC scoop.
Well, NBC News has a scoop out today about that group, about how that paper, the Epoch Times, has transformed itself a lot in the Trump era. It's a real revelation, this reporting from NBC News. I mean, Epoch Times and its media group, they've made themselves into a whole new thing entirely and in a very big way. Over the last 6 months, the single largest organization that has spent more money on Facebook ads promoting Donald Trump and Donald Trump's reelection is, as you might expect, the Donald Trump reelection campaign. The organization that is second on that list, though, is this Falun Gong newspaper, the Epoch Times. Quote, by the numbers, there is no bigger advocate of President Donald Trump on Facebook than the Epoch Times. The small New York-based nonprofit news outlet has spent more than $1.5 million in the last 6 months on about 11,000 pro-Trump advertisements, according to data from Facebook's advertising archive. More than any organization outside the Trump campaign itself, and more than most Democratic presidential candidates have spent on their own campaigns. So why is this little special interest newspaper becoming the biggest online booster of Donald Trump's reelection other than Donald Trump's reelection campaign itself?
Hang on, Mad Cow. Let's back that liberal loony bin up a second, shall we? This, my dear, is an alt-right, bold-face lie. This is a fabrication, which we shall see.
We'll get to the scoop in a minute. And why is the Epoch Times spending lots of money on political ads and on Facebook? Why are they doing that? Well, only because Rachel the Mad Cow says so, and Rachel the Mad Cow lies about it. Because they're not. Let's let Jasper Feckert explain that again, shall we? NBC and MSNBC and Rachel the Mad Cow misrepresented our print subscription advertisements despite our clarifying this in our June 20 statement, which they again chose to ignore. MSNBC chose to ignore Epoch Times' statement. Well, that's their problem. Your problem, Mad Cow, not mine. We take advantage of different marketing platforms to grow our subscriber base, including Facebook. On Facebook, we use video ads to drive subscriptions. The Epoch Times subscription advertisements have no political agenda. The only reason some of them are run as political advertising is that online platforms such as Facebook require them to be categorized as such. It appears that because NBC News and MSNBC and Rachel the Mad Cow disagree with our independent and fact-based journalism, they have resorted to these unwarranted attacks. Seems like that to me. Now for this scoop. Yeah, like it's a scoop that a media outlet giving money to a politician or a political campaign is a scoop. Really? Well, what about this scoop, Mad Cow?
Well, it looks like Rachel the Mad Cow has a problem with the Epoch Times supporting Trump and donating to Trump's efforts. I thought she was supposed to be a news reporter and just report the facts. Why isn't she reporting these facts? About the Clinton Foundation donors include dozens of media organizations and individuals. Wow, really? Wow. Check this out. Check this out. Where does it say look at this. It says Twitter. Comcast, parent company of NBC Universal. NBC Universal, parent company of NBC News, MSNBC, and CNBC. Oh. So you guys give to Hillary Clinton, that's okay. But when the Epoch Times gives to Donald Trump, that somehow is news. Or that somehow is wrong. Or that somehow is, I don't know, is not a good thing. What other words can you say there, Rachel the Man Cow? Why aren't you reporting on this? You're supposed to be news. Or I don't know, are you opinion? Are you news? I don't know what you are. I know you're a mad cow, but I don't know if you're news or opinion. I have no clue. But just wanted to point that out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I said at the beginning of the video, this is a rather long one, so I decided to cut it into 2 parts. So this is the end of part 1. So if you liked the video so far, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, hit the notification bell, and send a comment. It would be greatly appreciated. More news later. Take care, and as always, be safe. Part 2 soon.